Here with Jeremy Toy and Melissa Paris, Mark Gibran, and Sean Dillon Kelly. Today, we're going to go through so many things. We want to cover the diversity of coaching. We want to talk about different things with respect to what Jeremy Toy has been up to internationally and all that good stuff that he's done, and also maybe cover a little bit of prep for the track. So we got a lot of topics for you. Let's go ahead and get started. Maybe kick it off with you, Jeremy. Welcome. How are you?
Welcome. Hey.
Hey, you know what?
Hey, Melissa. Hey, Sean. Hey. Sorry, go ahead.
How you doing?
Adam,
Hey, guys. Can I jump in a second? I was kind of Facebook stalking Sean Dillon Kelly because I didn't know a lot about him.
A lot of guys stalk him. Don't worry about it.
Except for his racing, I know all about his racing. But was it your birthday recently, Sean?
A few days ago, it was. Yeah.
All right.
Oh wow! Happy birthday!
Like, what are you, like 15 now?
14, 16.
See, here's the thing. He's officially adult, so you can officially attack him.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah.
My
you can now attack me.
My husband didn't even wait for you to be an adult to do that. He just did it while you were a minor.
That's the sad part. That's the sad part. Especially considering you guys have a child now. It's a little.
I know, right? You'd think he would understand, but apparently he shows no mercy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think where the visor goes down, there's the line between those two goes out the window.
Happy birthday,
for
Sean.
a lot of us. Happy
Thank
birthday,
you.
man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Felicidades.
Gracias.
There you go.
And Mark is awfully quiet. But let's hit it off with Jeremy. Go ahead. Maybe Jeremy, you want to share with us what you want to cover today?
Yeah. Well, there's a ton of stuff to cover. We got three different levels of everything from tech to ability to where they've come from. A lot of diversity that I think relates to the fast track situation. So I'm going to put my kick back in this chair, put my legs up because they're on fire because of this guy right here. Ahmad took us out on a mountain bike ride yesterday. And I'm thinking to myself, hey, he's asking me, let's go mountain bike. I went with him once and it was all good. Took me out on a 3.5-hour death march yesterday. So every time he's smiling like that, he's like, that's little giggles. Don't get sidetracked. That's like an evil little hamster right there, ready to bite because I am on fire. I've never cramped so bad in my life. It's the craziest thing. So
did you realize that being buffed isn't everything in life?
Yeah. Or hey, more importantly, maybe if you didn't skip leg day so much.
Hey, you know what? The intro for that was just like so on the plate. But yeah, all I've been doing during quarantine is legs, so it's a different story now, and that's probably why. But yeah, the worst. You cycling people. I'm gonna tell you right now. That's a breed that I'm not really down with because you're all weirdos and like that for just the oddest reason. But that's some of the most real pain I've felt. And I've been, crashed motorcycles at over 100 miles an hour and been hit by cars on bicycles and done a lot of dumb things. Cramping from cycling is gnarly. So I don't get why you guys are into that so much. That's just crazy.
Well, I sent you a text message. Hey, are we doing this again this weekend? And nothing. Crickets.
It's because I couldn't get I couldn't find the emoji with a big enough finger to send back. So yeah, maybe next time. And like I said, the Big Bear opens in a couple weeks, so maybe we can redeem something there.
Oh, for sure.
Hey Sean, you're on the East, aren't you? You're in Hollywood.
I am.
Hollywood was the wrong side of the country.
The wrong side, yeah. The fake Hollywood. But I'm actually up north by Georgia now because I came up to Jennings to do a track day this weekend. So.
Oh, right on. You get
a little change in scenery.
Last I checked, I think. Are you going to end up out here on the west side someday? I think a lot of the top pros are out here nowadays.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been over there, and actually one of the times I went, It was just to go do a track day at Laguna with Jeremy. And man, honestly, I love it out there. I haven't been there too much time, but I know that there's a lot of training out there, and definitely more than over in South Florida. There's not much down here, but I'll definitely be there soon. I think if it wasn't for this quarantine stuff nowadays, I would have been there already, but I'll be there eventually.
All the motorcycle training's out here, but I mean, if you left that coast, you miss out on the day glow high tops and freaking Jeeps with no roofs on them for no reason. But
I know, but to that end, you'd think Mark would be over there too. Just saying.
Oh.
What's up, Mark?
Nice.
So maybe just, Jeremy, going back to, and specifically talking about diversity for those who don't know, like maybe just kind of, can we touch base specifically? I think we cover a lot of ground because you got a different skill set and a different starting point for Mark versus the point where Sean has started versus where Melissa, Melissa's been on both sides. She was actually coaching and coached, right? Like, so you've covered a lot of spectrum there. So, and crew chiefing. So like you guys, the spectrum is so big, right? So
spectrum's huge, and that's that's why that I picked. I have a bunch of people I could have picked, but there's a lot of fun people I've worked with and covers them. But Mark, let's start on Mark, and there's a lot to grind on Mark. But Mark, 100% started at ground zero with a purple scooter. Or it was a pink scooter, pink or purple. It's probably pink and purple, but started like at the base of all ground zeros, and he was that dumb street squid that, was riding a scooter too fast and crashing into Suburbans or whatever you ran into. And ultimately ended up at my shop. I had for some people that don't know, I had a performance shop for 18 years, and that's where my mechanical background comes from, but ended up at my shop at, after he crashed the scooter, he was like, "Oh, I want to get a super bike," and bought like a Ducati or an MV or probably both.
Oh no! Remember when I bought my first bike? I wanted to buy my first super bike, and it was a fucking BMW K1200 fucking R.
Okay, yeah.
I was like, yeah, they sold this thing, said it's got warp speed. That's the first bike I've ever owned. 2008, very first bike. I went there and showed Jeremy, check out my bike, bro. Check out this thing. Because the fuck is that? Is that a rocket ship? That was my first bike. And then from there, I went through like 4 different Ducatis.
But those were all on the street.
Yeah, those were all on the street. I was racing up and down Palomar Mountain, Highland Valley Road every weekend for the first 2 or 3 years. I'd go in there and everyone goes, "You got to get your suspension set up by Lee Cycles, Jeremy Toy, and this and that." Feed me all this bullshit, that's fat, all they did is make me crash more. So down there, told Jeremy, "Hey, set my bike up," and he's looking at this. I think it was when I had my NV Augusta. He goes,
yeah.
For pile of shit for. I'm just like, what? It's an MV, bro. It's a badass. He's like, yeah. And for a couple of years or so, I've been racing up and down Palomar, and Jeremy's like, "Dude, you're a douchebag. Get off the streets. Go to the track." I'm like, "The fuck is a track?" I'm like, "Well, what are you talking about? We're going to the track." I ride up and down Palomar for free.
I'm with you, Mark.
I couldn't figure out that he took me to my first track day with that Bunt Willow. And I remember I went to Bunt Willow, and I thought, this guy's fucking insane. These people are driving or just fucking riding like it's like nothing, and did my first track day, and that was it. Went out and bought me a 2010 S1000 BMW and went riding at the track for the last 2 or 3 years. Every fucking weekend I was at the track day, riding. And then for about a couple years, 2 or 3 years of doing track day, like every other weekend somewhere, Jeremy's like, you need this, you need to start racing. You should race. Have a lot more fun racing. And so I started doing the fast track and coaching by Jeremy at fast track every month that you had a track day there, and did pretty good. I'm good at copying people, watching what people do and mimicking them, and Jeremy trained me, and I felt confident that I did my first race at Streets of Willow. Went there with a couple friends of mine, Mark Polson and Gary Orr from San Diego BMW. And one weekend I went out there and did a race, and I came back, running back. "Hey, Jeremy, check this out, bro. I went racing over the weekend at fucking Willow Springs." And this and that, and then I just started racing ever since then. You know.
So, Mark, let me ask you this: like, so going from the streets to the track, was that a great experience, or was it an intimidating experience, or was it like?
It was great because I went from the streets to the track and started doing the track days with Chuck Wall on fast.
So
track.
why did you come off the street? Tell them why you came off the street.
Well, because crossing the double yellow line a few times and getting hit by a car, you know, kind of,
Oh boy,
buddies.
kind of made my decision, and you know, Jeremy harping on me, go to the track. It's a lot safer. In which, yes, it is 100% a lot safer. You don't have any oncoming traffic, no double yellow line crossing. The only person you have to worry about is Melissa Parrish cutting your nose off going down.
Oh, come on.
But no, it was a night and day difference. I mean, from the streets to the track. The streets was fun because you had your friends that you got to hang out with and you got to rag on each other. But you know, the dangers of the street it's no comparison to the track. The track is 100% safer than the streets.
So, but Mark, like knowing what you know now I mean, I've seen you ride. You're probably a little modest about your riding right now. I mean, I've seen you ride and you are pretty legit. You can go pretty quick, especially at Auto Club Speedway. Do you think you would have gotten there without the proper training, or could you have gotten there that quickly? Because your racing time or your actual riding time was pretty short to go from where you were from a start of 2008 to where you are. It's just amazing how fast.
And where he went was seriously starting at zero. Like this dude didn't start off on
he was
little
negative,
spikes when
right?
he was little.
Because probably, like you said, it was negative because like he was doing a lot of wrong things with the wrong habits. So it's not even zero. It's like below zero.
Oh, his
right?
talent? Oh, yeah. His talent 100% was negative.
But no, I don't think I would have gotten to where I'm at now without the training and doing track days and getting coached the right way. Absolutely.
Hey.
I would not be where I'm at now.
Hey, Melissa, Sean, do you guys ride on the street at all, still or ever? Or?
I actually started out like Mark. I mean, Palomar
Yeah,
was the
she was
first
street
place
squid
I ever.
too.
Yeah, that's the first place I drug knee. So, I definitely like can understand his story. It's like, hey man, this is free and I can go here every weekend and it's awesome. And then I just got lucky that a bunch of dudes who are like older and smarter than me were like, you're gonna die if you keep doing this. Like, come out to a track day. And as soon as I went to one track day, I went back to Palomar and all of a sudden I was seeing stuff I hadn't seen before. I was like, oh man, did you see there's like a guardrail?
Yeah,
Did you see like that? Did you see that? Dude, there's a cliff right there. Like you could fall off the side of the goddamn mountain if you messed up. And like, and you know, all of a sudden like the bus is coming at you, like the school bus is going. I was like, oh shit, I bet that would hurt. Like, and then I was, like, honestly, it just didn't like appeal to me anymore. We usually have like a couple street bikes in our garage. I think we got like an MT10 right now. And it's fun to just like, ride down to the beach and, go grab a coffee or something. But as far as trying to like go fast on the street anymore, it's like 100,000% lost its appeal to me.
Yeah.
My first year going fast track riding and finally getting Jeremy coming out there and coaching me most of the time out there, going from like doing 148s to got down to 122 or 133s and 131s, 132s, and it was for me it was a big achievement because every time my times got quicker, the more excited I got, the more happier I got with my training and coaching and stuff.
And I like. This is just it's all is a good story, but like I got to get in and give a stab on him. Like this was one guy that I really had to grab a hold of because he was going to hurt himself. Like he legitimately was going to do damage to himself and somebody else around. And so he started off on a level that was dangerous for everybody in the surrounding. Like, the funny story, and it's 100% true, and Mark will back me up. The very, very, very first four laps we ever did.
I remember.
Very, very first 4 laps we ever did. I said, go out there. I want you to do you. I want to see what all the students, what needs. to be really have the attention focused on. And I let him do his 4 laps. I came back in, and he's all happy. He's like, "Oh, so what are we going to work on?" And I told him, I go, "Well, we're going to go out this next time, and I'm probably just going to run you off the road and hopefully total your motorcycle so you don't come back because you're going to kill yourself and everyone around." Like, it was so bad,
But you told
so
me,
bad.
either you crash yourself or I'm going to crash you and be done for the day because you are reckless out there.
So
But-
how do you work
so
with
it went
someone
from-
like that, Jeremy? Like, how do you break that down when somebody is so out of control, beginner, super excited, enthusiastic? Like, what was the turning point?
You take the spark plugs out, and then you just
Seriously,
like, oh, your bike
like,
doesn't work
exactly.
anymore. Sorry.
Inflate the tires.
You need to throw water on that fire because he was so gnarly. So
Hey,
gnarly.
Sean, were you ever in that position, or do you even ride on the street?
What are you talking about? Sean barely just got his license.
That's what I'm saying. I'm barely legal to do anything right now. I've ridden in the street once, I will say, and I didn't really like it, because one, I went fast like one time, but it was like a straightaway. But then I was like, nah, this is too gnarly. Like, I prefer the street. And then two, since I started going slow, I don't like going slow on a motorcycle. So it was just horrible overall. And that was one time last year out in Colorado. So
When was the first time
There's
you
just
got on
way
a
too
bike,
many
Mike?
speed limits down Miami Boulevard to even ride a street bike. So
dude, there's way too many dumb people driving cars in Miami. So it's
Can you
not gonna
split
happen.
lanes over there?
People don't know what lanes are to begin with. So yeah.
Hey, Sean, when was the first time you got on a motorcycle?
I was 5.
5, okay. And that was a
Yeah.
dirt bike, I'm assuming?
that was last year.
like Zach.
God, guys. First it's Melissa, now it's Jeremy. Well, it's gonna be a fight between you two.
I was
Isn't it
actually
not-
just thinking, isn't it past your bedtime right now?
I was just gonna say that.
God.
Oh, you guys
Wow,
are.
guys. Yeah, on
Uh-oh.
fire
He
today.
turned 18 now, guys. So he's legal.
18, it's legal.
Okay.
In Montreal, you can
Um,
drink, so.
And in
There you
Spain.
go.
I'll be back there
Yeah,
soon.
pretty much.
It actually wasn't a dirt bike. It was a pocket bike on a little kart track
Okay.
in Miami. Yeah, like a kart track. It's not really a kart track, but we consider it a kart track down in Miami. It's the best we could do.
Oh, great. Did you get into dirt bikes as well, or was it mostly
I
bikes
got into
and-
dirt bikes late. Yeah, I started
Okay.
when I was 6. I started racing, and it was already in like the mini motos, all on asphalt. And I didn't get into dirt really until I started getting older. And my first dirt bike was a 150R, and I didn't really go on the dirt too much. I really started going on the dirt more once I got a 450, and I think I was like 13 when I started training on the dirt with the 450, and ever since it's a pretty big part of my program now. Well, it was until 4 months ago that I broke my fucking leg doing it, but I'll be back on it eventually.
Hey, Melissa, you've been on both sides of the spectrum, right? Because I think
Mhm.
that Jeremy has been probably uncoachable. I don't know if anybody can coach Jeremy. But just what do you like more? You like more coaching? You like more getting coached, or you see like you have probably a different perspective when you're receiving criticism or feedback from someone, right?
Or
you
the third component, do you like more bossing?
Or,
Bossing
I
the
mean,
team, running the
to
team.
be honest with you, like when I first started like doing track days and club racing, it was still a little bit of an anomaly having a girl out at the racetrack, I think sometimes. And I had so many people that would like come up to me and be like, oh, you should do it this way, or you should be doing this other thing. And like this is like something I think doesn't get talked about enough, is taking coaching from people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Because at that time in my life, I was like, oh, if someone's going to go out of their way to like tell me that they're going to walk up to me and say, this is the way you should be getting around the racetrack, they probably know what they're talking about.
Especially
And-
a female rider. I can't imagine
Yeah.
how many people came up.
It's bananas. And then I actually ended up developing like a lot of really stupid, bad habits and making really bad choices, even in regards to like the way I chose to go club racing, that like sometimes I look back and go, oh my God, like if I knew then what I knew now, I wouldn't have wasted as much time and money as I did, trying to figure things out. So one thing I think is really important is to like look at the credentials of your coach. Like, when you're choosing who you want to teach you how to do something like this, like look at their credentials and look at the people that are recommending them. And I think that's something that's really important to do. It's crazy because Josh will say, like, Josh will be sitting right next to me and like someone will come up and be like, oh, I was, when you passed me going into turn 3, like you were pretty far to the inside. And like, I feel like if you'd set up wider, and Josh is like, I'm right here. Like, I don't think she needs you to like, like he's so nice. Like, he's so nice. He won't be a jerk, but like secretly he's like, well, that was kind of offensive. Like, like why? Yeah, I don't know. So like that kind of stuff cracks me up, but
I think it's really, really key, Melissa, to understand what you're highlighting is such an important point, because not everybody who's just faster than you knows more than you. Like, I think there's some people that could be faster, but they're just taking more risk. And then they feel entitled that they can actually give you advice. And to your point, it's like, you got to really look at the source. Where is this information coming from?
And I'm telling you, I've had people come up to me who I am faster than, and they'll say like, oh, you should do X, Y, Z.
But I thought,
bro, I just passed you.
The only reason they were faster. Yeah, the only reason they were faster because this was back when Melissa was riding a 125cc bike and they were on a 1000. Probably. Going on turn 8 Willow Springs at full pin and
yeah. So for sure I had stuff to learn, but like people were just giving me like really stupid, not even just like riding technique, but I remember someone telling me like, oh, like, are you going to race this weekend? And saying, oh, like, I'm not, because I don't have money for tires. And that person saying, well, it's really good practice to just go ride on roached out tires. And so I did that all the time. And as a result, I had like zero confidence, so like my confidence level was like nothing because I was just riding around on crap all the time. You know what I mean? And then I meet Josh and he's like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, if you can't figure out how to go fast when you have grip, how the hell are you going to figure out how to go fast? Like you step by step, So, I just like wish I could go back to me back then and say like, those guys were Muppets. Don't listen to them.
What about like feedback from Jeremy? How's Jeremy in his delivery from your perspective versus the way that you deliver to the students that you're coaching?
Well, actually, I think it's really important when you're coaching, you need to figure out what people respond to, right? So like Josh knows, like if Josh is trying to tell, like if I'll go to Josh and say like, hey, like what can I do to be better? And if he's like, oh, I don't know, you're like getting around pretty good, like you look fine. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so bad. It's not even worth telling me what to fix. That's what I hear. Whereas like Jeremy will be like, are you fucking kidding me? Like you're garbage in turn 1. Like I'm super motivated. I'm motivated by shame.
Mark heard it many times, and so
that's so true.
And like for me, like I'm shame motivated. So like make fun of me and ridicule me into something, and like you can usually get me to like do better. But then I've worked with some beginners where it's like you got to give them the compliment sandwich. You got to be like, oh, your body position looks really good. Like please hold the throttle wide open. But I really like the color of your bike.
Sean, it sounds like you've heard some of statements like that from Jeremy as well.
Yeah, just once or twice. Yeah, just once or twice. Not too much.
Just once or twice. Well, we hear it all the time at the track. He's over clear far at the other end of the garages, and we hear him just shouting at somebody already. It's usually Mark, but it's okay.
Man, I'm telling you, you guys have got. I mean, everybody's got the PG version compared to Mark. Yeah. Nobody's got it.
Well, that's actually going to say, like, especially with me last year, like he started off pretty nice, like now I got to know him and he's a little bit more straightforward now, but I caught on to him quite quick, and I would see him looking at data, and just by looking at his face, I know that he wants to scream at me and say, what the fuck are you doing? But he was quite cool about it. He was like, I think you need to work on this. But see, believe it or not, Jeremy did start off slow with me. believe it or not.
Yeah,
being
well,
We
Jeremy.
tamed him at
Sean,
Fast Track.
hey,
You were 16. You were 16.
let's be honest. We've all seen the videos, Sean. We've seen the arm on your dad. Everyone's gonna be nice to you.
And that's when I was 17.
I'm just saying.
But
He's probably scared of him.
the most important thing is with Jeremy, when he coached me, you know, you can go through all these coaches and talk to all these coaches and get all these advice, but you got to find that coach. Like Melissa said, you got to look at their credentials. You got to find that coach that understands you, okay? That not just to understands like this is what you should do, that understands you, that knows how to talk to you to make sure you know what he's talking about. Because all the time it took Jeremy to figure out to understand me, because I'm dumb as rocks. You know, he's trying to explain to me. No,
He's not exaggerating.
You gotta order this way. You gotta get your ass off the bike this way. And he could tell me till he was blue in the face, but if he doesn't explain it to my level, for me to understand it, then it just goes out the window. And he figured me out, and that's why I always stuck with Jeremy. He will figure out that the rider, he'll figure out his level of knowledge of can he ride or can he ride, and he'll figure you out and he'll teach you the right way. And that's what I liked about Jeremy. Yeah, he was hard on me all the time. Yeah, you fucking fag. What's wrong with you? If you don't launch that bike the right way, I'm done coaching you. He goes, you're done with you. You know what I mean? But no, he got it. And I give all the credit.
But I think
in all the people that I rode with, you know, that got to where I'm at. Especially when I had that race against Melissa that one time at Fontana. She's the one who got me down. She's the one who got me down to the 31, 32. I was like, it goes, that's it right there. So, you know, if the coach understands you and can get down to your level, you'll do fine. And Jeremy's pretty good at that. He can figure out the people's level of their knowledge on riding and not riding.
And I think it's good when you're getting criticism, like when I get criticism from Jeremy or anyone, but I get a lot of criticism, so it's just normal for me. But the thing to remember,
let's keep it on riding. Just keep it on riding.
Okay. When you're getting coaching from someone, it's important to remember, like when they tell you, like even if it seems like they're being hard on you, it's because they know that you're capable of doing more. So that's one thing I always try to keep in mind, like, you know, especially with Josh, like in the beginning, it was really hard when Josh would say like, hey, like, you know, you're braking way too early for this turn. And like my instant reaction would be to get my feelings hurt. But then after time went by, I was like, he wouldn't say that if he didn't think I was capable of doing better. So even though he's like criticizing me, it's actually kind of a compliment, right? Like he knows I'm capable of doing more. So when you have a coach who might seem really critical, I think it's important to remember they're only being critical because they expect more from you than what you're putting out there, maybe. Or Jeremy just wants to see you wad yourself up.
You know, on the you know, Jeremy, you won two of your riders won two of the academies. Well, we've had 5 academies at Fast Track. You won 2 of them, and I was your assistant coach for one of them. And I didn't see a whole lot, you know, I didn't see too much harsh pressure, you giving too much harsh pressure on your riders. You took a different approach. It seemed to have worked.
Well, that's just it. And like Melissa and Mark have kind of said, you need to know your crowd. And obviously during the academies, you've got multiple people. So singling one person out, you know, and I kind of pull them to the side and might talk to them specifically different. But like Mark, for sure, needed specific, you know, aggressive coaching, but only one thing. You give that guy more than one thing, this one right here is never ever going to see the day of light. He can work on this. Where Melissa, for sure, is capable of understanding and taking a couple things in, but she also, Melissa definitely needs a push. Like you just wait for her to turn around, you kind of kick her in the back and tell her why you kicked her in the back, and then she'll figure it out. And then Sean, you know, Sean's on a definitely on a steep curve, you know, where his understanding and his speed level is at a different thing. So when me and Sean are downloading, we're talking about the tiniest little things. And, you know, you can be funny about it and be aggressive when I'm talking to them. But for the most part, when we're talking about those things, they're so minute that it's going to make the difference. So it's figuring that stuff out.
And I think that makes really what a great coach is. And by the way, those side discussions, Adamar, you probably missed them because they were one-on-one. You didn't see the harsh criticism between Jeremy and the riders. But really the key thing is that, Jeremy, it's amazing. A good coach really can adapt to what the student is capable of understanding and being able to communicate with that specific student. And it's very hard sometimes for coaches to change their style and be adaptable. And that's the difference between a great coach and a good coach and a decent coach and maybe a below average coach, right? So I think the key thing is, like, if I'm sitting here and I want to get coached by someone, do you think is it the responsibility of the rider to find a coach that works for their style, or do you think just finding a great coach that knows how to adapt to any style and make it work is the way to go?
I think the coaches, any of the good coaches will have some way to adapt, because we've got to communicate with the general public, and that's how you get your point across. My point is more direct than the average person. But I'm the first one to say, like, I think I'm really good at what I do, but you need to take that piece and then have another coach like Jake do it and supplement it with that. Like, nobody's perfect, and then have Josh supplement. There's a lot of guys in my close arm's reach that I 100%, I'll take, guys that I work with for years, like Zumaris is another crazy guy that I deal with quite a bit on a day-to-day basis. And I have had Josh help him. I've had Jake help him. And like everybody, like I might call it peanut butter and jelly and they might not understand, he might not get it, but way Josh or Jake says it, they're going to get it. And that's, I think, a big thing too.
Right.
So everybody,
it's good to have a coach that's willing to, like, say, like, man, I'm struggling to get this across. Like Josh and I went back and forth about, the technique of making a smooth downshift for like a freaking year, until finally he was like, you know what? Like, I don't even think about this. Like, it's just something that comes natural to me, and it's like real basic, and it's not even something that's on. And Jason drew a picture on a whiteboard. I get it now, So like, I think it's really good when you have a coach that's like, man, I'm struggling to, like, hey, this other person's really good at explaining that maybe a little bit better than me. And I think that, like, that humility it takes to be able to do that makes someone better, makes you a better coach. Maybe. So
awesome. I mean, this is really great. So let's maybe for whoever is watching this video, just so they can kind of get some grip on, there's somebody who's really eager to improve. And I could tell you, like, for me personally, and just as Jeremy talked about cycling earlier, I'm a completely novice when it comes to cycling. I just started riding a couple of years ago. And so, but the speed I was able to accelerate to become a decent cyclist is because of a lot of proper coaching. And I owe it to Eric Bostrom and to Janelle. And, they just really helped me accelerate that learning curve so much faster than it would take normally to just kind of find out by trial and error. So I'm a huge advocate of that. But to break it down for somebody who's watching, right? So what would you be your first recommendation? Because I think for me, it's pretty obvious. It doesn't matter what level you're at. You still need coaching, right? Like you can get coached to any level.
We've got that right now on the spectrum with
exactly,
somebody like, Mark coming from the ground zero to Mel getting to a pretty respectable pace to, Sean and even Rocco. These two kids, are, what I consider, America's next up and coming. I mean, and we're expecting great things, and they all can use it. Another thing that we're not completely touching on is the technical side. So I think another thing that's a big deal with a coach, even if they don't understand it, is to see not only the rider's issue, but the bike's issue. So, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of pro riders that I know that are amazing, and I use them in my class quite a bit, that have this amazing talent, but they have no idea what's going wrong with the bike and could never ever fix it if something ever came to that. So with little lucky with my background, and Jake's not too shabby, definitely Chris knows is locating something that could actually help you out with a bike. If it's something as simple as just checking your tire pressures, having basic setup, like Mark was saying, basic setup. Obviously, on Sean's level, we're sitting there staring at squiggly lines for hours and hours, in the hotel at 1 a.m, and I'm still staring at squiggly lines. We're looking for tints. But your track day guy could benefit from something as simple as a chain adjustment. It's crazy. And some of those coaches can see that, a mile away. And I'm lucky enough with my, repair background. I think that's a huge benefit. So yeah, there's a few things.
Well, that's one thing I noticed in your coaching. I got to work with all of the other coaches in the academies. I think all of them. And that was one big difference with you, Jeremy. You devoted a good effort into getting the bike tuned for your guys. And I know that that's really important. That was really good. And by the way, I think, when you mentioned Jake, you mean Jake Zemke, because there's viewers in the audience.
Yeah.
I think you're referring to Jake Zemke, and I think you also mentioned Chris. You're probably referring to Chris Ulrich.
Yeah.
Which Chris, by the way, he's online also, and he's asking for Sean Dylan Kelly's autograph. I think you guys know each other.
Wow.
And he just says no pressure, Sean.
I mean, isn't he your boss? He's your boss, right, Sean?
He is my boss. Yeah. At least someone's nice to me.
I just want to make sure Chris isn't texting and driving, because as of like 30 minutes ago, he was driving away in one of my vehicles. So
he's using voice. He's using voice to text.
That's the only reason she cares.
Yeah, basically.
Not in my truck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good one.
Well,
so sorry,
Chris,
what were you saying?
If you're out there. I was just saying, specifically kind of highlighting, like Jeremy was saying earlier, having a good technical background is super important. So one is the rider, you have to understand how that rider is, everybody can benefit from coaching. But then the next thing is you want to be willing to get coached, and you want to be willing to be accepting, some hard criticism. You have to kind of get outside. You have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? So you have to get more, pushing your boundaries, but not necessarily by just pushing to the limit that you have to go hit the ground hard and then learn from that, right? So, and that's what coaching kind of buys in, at least for me, it helps me avoid these situations where, if you keep building on something, because if you crash, then you have a setback, and then you have to kind of overcome that with your mind and your physical abilities again. So it just sets you back. But if you keep building these small increments, but yet still push the boundaries, and that's what a good coach is going to be able to help you get through. So, the next thing, what you were saying, Jeremy, is the mechanical aspect of it. What's the third thing? Is it from a coaching perspective?
Jeremy can't count that high.
Yeah. Let me see. I could actually count to 5 on one hand. How many can you count, Mel? Okay, go back.
4 3/4.
4 3/4. All right. So, no, I mean,
high five.
really, with the recipe, yeah, with the recipe, I really think, seeing what that person needs, and it could be technique or it could be a technical part of it.
Right.
Those are really how we're laying our worksheets out. At least, well, when I say we, me, those are really the key ingredients, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, Sean, what do you think is your best track, or what is your weakest track that you think Josh is going to be really crucial role for you?
We don't have a weak track, just his best track.
Yeah. Okay, are we referring to the Moto America schedule?
Yeah.
Because I've ridden pretty badass tracks in my life, but should we stick to the US or not? Because it changes quite a bit.
Yeah, maybe if we can stick to track here in I know the tracks,
Okay.
The tracks in Europe, they're like so perfect that they're too easy. In my opinion. They're like so textbook,
Sure. It's a pretty easy call. The racetrack that I won both races at last year, Pittsburgh.
Is there
Broken
something
record,
there that you
youngest-
think you could
youngest
improve
double.
on?
I heard like
Always.
3 people at the same time. Say it again. One of you guys.
Sorry about that. My question is there a section in there you think you can improve on that you and Jeremy are going to work on together?
Oh yeah, for sure. There's always spots that we can work on, and once we get to Pittsburgh, we'll go a little bit more in depth to what we need to work on in Pittsburgh. But right now, a good example is Road America. We're racing there next weekend, and Jeremy and I have already been talking for the past 2 weeks, or maybe even 3, about looking at those squiggly lines he was talking about, and just looking at we have a lot of reference from last year, and I know some spots where I was losing a bunch of time, and we still did good last year at Road America. We were still fighting for the win, 2 podiums, but there's some sections in the track where we had a little good, but there's some spots that we were lacking a lot, So we have been talking about it for the last few weeks, and let's see if we can do it better next
We're
weekend.
going to be cheering for you guys. I think the problem. See, my perspective is, I work with amateur riders mostly, and when I'm telling them to improve something, it's not anything close to what you guys talk about when you're at the races. It's just you guys are talking about some macro, 1/10 of a second here and there, when we're talking about 2-3 seconds or something.
Right. And I mean, at the end of the day, everything adds up, because we might be talking about tenths, but we might be talking about tenths per corner, and if you add 4 corners, that's almost half a second already,
And
so
even 10 laps on 1/10 of a second, I mean, that's
exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you start
Especially Road
multiplying,
America.
yeah.
exactly.
So-
If you start multiplying, everything adds up.
For everybody who's listening, those squiggly lines, can you elaborate what are we talking about? is that like Melissa's child in the background putting a squiggly line on a piece of paper with a crayon?
What it started off was Mark first eating crayons and then drooling onto a piece of paper. Those are the first squiggly lines. But no, the squiggly lines that we're talking about now, it's all data. So
Okay.
I've been lucky enough to be in the industry for a while, and our first data acquisitions were a rubber band on a fork or a rod on the shock. And say with the current stuff, in Moto America rules, you can have quite a bit of data on these bikes. Sean races a Super Sport 600, and we have full data on the thing, which is on his particular bike is around 45 channels of data that we're able to stream. So basically, I'm not touching wrenches anymore. I'm just staring at a computer and looking at these squiggly lines for hours, looking for the differences and what the shock's doing, what he's doing, turn in, brake pressures, throttle position, wheel speeds, all of this, and looking for imperfections, looking for, things that are out of the ordinary. And you've got to sift through that like you got to sift through it like you're cleaning a cat box. I mean, looking for that golden nugget. And so it all will add up in the end. And we're lucky, like on the M4 team, that me and the other 600 crew chief Frank at the time are really good friends, and we'd be able to share data. So, I could even see Bobby's data, which is gnarly, and Sean's data, and we could get a happy medium of what really should be going on. So
don't you think it's weird how, like, I don't know, I think a lot of people have an idea that the data is just for bike setup, but you can do so much as far as helping, like, your rider have more insight into what's going on too.
100%,
like
100%.
That was huge for me. Like, we'd be somewhere like Laguna and, going over turn 1, you feel like you're rolling out 20%, and then you see on the data you're rolling out like 80%. You know what I mean?
You're only on 20%.
Yeah, and it's like, I had this idea in my head that, like, those squiggly lines are just, hey man, that's your fucking job, make my bike better. And instead having someone come back to me and be like, yo, could you like try to like little bit more of that? Yeah, because like, I mean, you don't, as a rider, hey, it's hard to know the difference between 80% throttle and 60% throttle, right? Like
100%.
it's so hard. So having that available to you, and having someone to look at it and be like, don't bullshit me, I know you're not on the stop.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
there's,
so
I'm
there's
going
a
to tell you,
switch. We're changing that.
yeah, our
To on
downloads,
off switch.
especially with Sean, I would bet, I mean, you can chime in, Sean, but I would bet it's pretty close to 50-50 with applying the technique or the bike setup. You know, at the team, we're lucky enough to have a lot of data and a lot of prior bike setup. And not only last year, all these tracks was the first time Sean had a lot of times ever even seen the track. So he's out there riding, you know, around just trying to stay on the pavement and chase down the guys in the front. I mean, he's a lot going on. So a lot of times when we come back, doing anything crazy, fine, leave the bike. Let's talk about technique. And it was pretty hand in hand at this time. You know, I'm expecting him to be nothing but perfect this year, and we'll just work on bike setup. So yeah,
No pressure.
I don't know, no pressure.
Thanks,
But
guys.
what do you think, Sean? How much do you think that when we're downloading, are we finding a fix in you, or are we finding a fix in the bike?
Well, I think you got it right on the dot, honestly, being 50-50, you know, and like you mentioned earlier, you know, the technical side and the rider side is pretty much the two key parts, you know, so I definitely think it does split into two. And you already know, last year for me was actually my first year ever working with a crew chief, ever working with someone that has data. I had never seen data in my life before that, because in the Rookies Cup where I used to race the years before, it's all raw. It's just sit on the bike, ride, come back, and just do it again. So there was no data. So it was quite new for me, you know, last year to jump on and ride a 600 and get back to seeing a bunch of squiggly things. So I started off kind of, you know, unknown, but again, you know, the right coach, Jeremy being the right guy, really made things quite quick for me. I learned quite quickly with everything, and it actually helped me out a lot. It's also good for the rider to know, like Melissa said, you know, that there's a lot of stuff that a rider doesn't know. Like, you might feel something, but the data shows other. But it was cool to see, you know, that what I was feeling was actually what was happening. You know, like sometimes I would tell Jeremy, hey, I'm feeling like the bike doing this in this corner, but I didn't know if it was me until he looks at the data. And he's like, yeah, you're right. It is doing this in this corner, you know? So I'm like, okay, I'm not talking smack, you know, things are happening. So it makes you get a new sense of feel, I think. And then apart from that, though, it definitely just makes you learn a bunch on you know, where you're making big screw ups. And at the end of the day, when, you know, at the high level, when 2/10 counts and 3/10 counts, you need to start looking at more information, you know. So the more you have, the better, and the more you can do.
Absolutely. So Mark, when you were getting coaching, did you rely a lot on data as well?
I relied on Jeremy.
I think Mark just did that on purpose. Mark just won.
Jeremy would send me out there. He'd do a couple twists and turns on the suspension. He'd go out there and he'd send me out there, and I'd come back after my session. He goes, "Okay, what's the bike doing?" And I'm looking at him. I'm like, "It's." I goes, riding. Goes,
that exact look too.
You know, what do you mean? I'm riding the bike. I mean, it's moving. I mean, is it shaking over here? Is it, you know? I goes, I have no sense of knowledge of any mechanic or anything like that. So I come up the track like, I don't know. I goes, I feels the same as I rode 20 minutes ago or an hour ago, because I don't feel any difference. I mean, he would change so much stuff on that suspension to make that bike crashable, and I'll come back. What does it feel like? Because I don't know. Because it feels like I rode the same as I rode an hour ago. You know.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. I love hearing that though, because like I've had teammates in World Endurance where they're like, "Oh, the front end feels a little soft. We're gonna put 2 turns of preload on it," and I'm like, "I think we need like 5, but whatever." And then like someone will ride it and come in and be like, "Take 1 out," and I'm like, you can't feel the difference. Like, you're high. There's no way you can tell the difference.
So much of that is, I mean, that goes back to where you need to know who you're talking to, and some of those people are that sensitive. I mean, my coach and mentor, Kaz Ashima, would joke about turning a half a turn of preload in and me losing my mind about it and how unbelievable it was. Don't shake your head at me.
I'm shaking my head at you. Don't be that guy.
So there's some
Don't
of them that are, yeah, super sensitive.
Just put a turn in one fork, not in the other.
Yeah, totally.
I hate you.
Dude, the best story is him changing a half a pound of pressure in the rear tire, and I came back and I told him exactly what he did without him telling me. But
meanwhile, Josh has got 8 pounds too much at Daytona.
Exactly, and
there's zero difference in lap time. Yeah,
zero difference, exactly. But to go back to like something what relates to the fast track stuff, and I can't say this enough, is for everybody that's listening, the data can so get in the way of making you quicker. I can't express that enough. So you know, everybody, it's all your tech guys and your mods that are, you know, and you know, all these guys that have all this computer background. This stuff can so get in the way and derail your day so easily, and without having a guy there dedicated to sift through it and look and find somebody that knows what they're looking at, it's totally a waste of time. So going back to Mark, dude, Mark had so many problems just with him and his brain that fixing him first, and, you know, and just by luck, I had been racing a BMW those years. So I gave him a pretty good setup. I mean, that was not a problem. You know, he could vary a couple seconds in both ways and not have a problem. But introducing data to somebody like Mark, dude, you might as well go home. I mean, that dude's head's going to explode, and you don't want those eyes to come out any farther because they're pretty gnarly already. But with a normal track day situation, or even a club racer, like everybody asks me about data, and I'm like, you know, tread lightly. It's usually not for you unless you have somebody dedicated, you know, and I can't say that enough. So somebody, if we're moving across the spectrum, somebody like Sean, you know, we'd be wasting our time racing if we didn't have data. Well, absolutely. You know, even at Mel's level, 100% you'd be wasting your time without data. Anything less, data will help, but it just as easily will hurt.
Yeah.
You know, for those that are watching, Mark, by the way, he eventually became a very fast expert level racer and did really good. Would you not say that? I mean, no, I know 100%. I raced with Mark a few times, and I think there were some tracks he was faster than me, and some I was kind of dicing up with him. To me, that's fast.
No, he was unbelievably fast, and that's why he's such a good good measurement, because he came from crashing pink scooters to leading, and this is true story, awesome. Leading somebody like Dave Anthony for a couple laps. Like, he led Dave Anthony at Las Vegas for 3 laps and was handily in control of the race until he ran off the track. Didn't crash, but he just ran a little wide. But like, we're talking about somebody that was on a pink scooter a couple years before that. That's amazing.
But that went from racing super bikes and going to track days and converted all that into supermoto.
Yeah.
So it's all the stuff that you learn, it goes with you from bike to bike, from racing to racing, and from all that. You can ride bicycles.
Which is another thing that's worth talking about, and especially with all of us here, especially with Mel and especially with Sean, is the cross training, which is another thing that I advocate huge. You know, my whole background, everybody knows it, is motocross. But, you know, I'm currently riding flat track quite a bit. What?
You advocate motocross?
I forget motocross too.
Is that wrong?
I believe both of you guys have been taking
okay, you just pipe down.
Out of the motocross track.
You just don't want to do the motocross riding that I do.
Yeah, well, Mark should stay off a bike because he needed my one-on-one coaching the whole time and never let him out of my sight. Yeah, but back to like the crossing over, and you know, Josh and Mel's house is one of the best cross training, most put a smile on your face with the 125s, the flat track, and Sean's whole background, you know, is a ton of supermoto. These crossovers to where, yeah, you can have somebody tell you what you're doing wrong, which will help. You can have somebody look at your bike and fix your bike, which will help. But getting that other taste, and that was the whole reason I really pushed Mark to go supermoto or even try motocross, is because he didn't understand the road race bike at all, like zero, had no idea what it was doing or what it was telling you. So, hey, go try this motocross bike and get that extra feel, get that extra taste, and hopefully you won't be Mark anymore. I mean, which is saying a lot, but yeah.
So great. Just for the sake of time, I know we held you guys longer than we always wanted to, and
Hey, I have a question, by the way.
we always, but yeah, absolutely. So I wanna maybe let you, Adamar, ask the question first, but maybe just also be prepared. I wanna just maybe end it on at least one story from each one of you quickly of your favorite motorcycle experience story that you've had. Go ahead, Adamar. Now that I got them thinking about that, nobody's gonna answer your question.
Well, okay. Well, I'm gonna give him another one to think about. Okay, so here's the thing. Here's the deal. Each of you are pit boarding for a rider. Okay, let's imagine this. You're the pit board guy, if that's what you term them,
or gal.
And your rider is last lap of the race. First place, second place is right on his ass. And so the question is, what are you going to put on your pit board for that very last lap? Now, here's the deal. Melissa, since you're the team boss, and since you know Jeremy well, let's say Jeremy is racing and it's his last lap. What are you going to put on the pit board for him? Jeremy, what are you going to put on your pit board for Sean? And then Sean, you got the short stick, so you get three guys, Imad, Mark, and me.
Oh boy.
Three guys that you don't know anything about. What are you going to put on the pit board for our last lap?
Okay, so I'm saying what I would put on the pit board for Jeremy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I
know
own the
Jeremy
motorcycle.
well. Since
And
you
I
and
own-
Jeremy know each other
You're on
well.
the motorcycle.
And-
Too many
okay,
details.
So Jeremy's riding a bike that I own. There's just not enough space on the pit board for what I'd want to say.
Keep it to 4 letters.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is like so boring, but it would just be P1 plus 0, like, because I can't put on there, win, motherfucker, but don't crash my bike or I'll kill you.
That's what when he reads P+1, that's actually what he's going to read.
P1 plus 0, he's going to be like, he'll know what I'm saying.
Don't fuck it up.
Yeah, because anyone in like a 3-mile radius would just feel the anxiety like boiling off of my body. So like he'll just know.
Jeremy.
That's all I got.
Jeremy.
So yeah, same thing with that. Like there's all kinds of stuff that I'd like to put and, funny little things here and there, but you would whittle it down to something like P1 plus 0 would really be, if we're being serious, but I would put something like, 100%.
Yeah.
In the last lap, and especially with this, Sean's bike, I don't know it. He doesn't own it. It doesn't matter if the thing gets wasted. We're only looking for one position anyways. So
it's crash or win.
It's 100%.
Win it or bin it.
Win it or bin it, exactly. And, this last lap, you've got P0. And with somebody like Sean, I don't got to explain why he's there. He knows why he's there. Yeah. There's the one position he's after. And so this last lap is 100% or you'll get it in the truck.
Wait,
So
I just thought of something. I want to say my answer over again because if it was Jeremy, there'd be no pit board because he can't read. No point to even holding it out there.
How about a gesture?
Yeah, just a gesture. I'd be like the motocross guy with like the white rag, like just like go 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 go.
What I'm getting is when you put P1 plus 0, it says that, but that's not what you're really saying. They know what you're saying.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
so
most
Sean,
riders aren't very smart enough to download all that information and read anyway. So you got to keep it simple.
When you're going at 100 plus miles an hour, a flash second, you probably can't process too much. So Sean, you got the three of us, and no, you can't throw the board at us, okay? 'Cause we'll probably be at the back.
That's the problem. So that's you kind of just went the opposite way of my answer. I would be scared that one of you would hit the board, so I would just run away. I would just run away. Just leave it. Just
I think Sean knows me pretty well.
It didn't take too many stories. I wouldn't put anything except like seriously, maybe like last lap. Like that's it. Just keep it simple. Like whatever happens will happen. Knowing how Mark does his thing. Just make him know it's the last lap. If he wants to make it around, he wants to make it around. If he doesn't, then it's all good. No stress.
See, with Mark's pit board, it could be easy. You could just put he was always chasing Zoomer. He was always chasing Steve. So you could just put kill Zoomer, and he would know that would be all in.
That's awesome.
We did that in Vegas, I think.
Okay, so Sean, let me turn it around a little bit for you here, Sean. So if what would you like Jeremy to put on the board for you? Like, what are the things that you like to see on that board? Aside from P1.
Okay, well, yeah, okay. Yeah, you took that out of my head fast. Well, I like to see, you already took out P1, but I like to see plus, like, a lot of seconds. I don't like to see plus 0, like, a lot of seconds, 5, 10, 15, whatever. But if we're talking about a last lap situation, like you said, I just like to see him, like, I've seen him, like, pumped to the point where he's like throwing his fist at me, and then I've seen him like kind of like scared shitless where I only see his serious face. So I mean, I think I'm good with both. You know, they both like they both get to me. So honestly, I'll make anything work, even if he's not on the board. I'll make it work anyways.
So I'm also getting, it's not just the pit board; it's the gesture of your.
Oh yeah, it's a gesture for sure.
Exactly.
I can share a little bit of story that's always his pit board's always been right next to Bobby's, and Sean, definitely having a bit of a level head, and Bobby being a little bit erratic sometimes. We specifically made Bobby's board, and at times if he was leading or in a situation, they had it flipped over to where it said chill out. And it could, like if he was leading by a ton, his board would come out, chill out, keep it together. Where, I didn't have to worry about Sean too much going off the deep end, but, Bobby's shorter fuse.
You can totally mess with people though, because I've done it like when I've been holding Josh's pit board. We were at Daytona one time for an 8-hour, and I was holding pit board for Dane Westby and Josh and I forget who else, but they were chasing down the M4 boys. So it was Chris Ulrich, Jason DeSalvo, and I forget who else. And our guys were running them down. And so like whenever Chris would come by, even though he had like a 8-second gap, I just kept like putting our pit board out like right
nice.
As he would go by, so he would think like our guy was catching him.
The mind games.
And Kelly was holding his pit board at the time, and he was getting pissed and was like throwing shit at me. And so for sure you can mess with other people with the pit board too, so that's always
fun. There's no question, being a rider, there's no question that you look at other people's boards. 100%.
Yeah, like what? Oh God! Like why is that guy's pip board out? Like,
during qualifying, like you're scanning, 100%.
Yeah, for 100%,
sure.
Yeah. So since we still have you, Melissa, tell us a story about your favorite story that you want to tell about short and something that was an experience that you'll never forget.
Here I've just got like a really good one that's related to fast track. So. All
right.
Okay, I'm not in it, right? Okay.
No, this was previous owners. Well, I don't know. You might be previous owners. Actually, the second track day I ever did was a fast track day, and it was at Cal Speedway, but it wasn't like the whole course. It was like some different configuration. Yeah. And I got the blue flag like 3 times that day.
Oh wow. Blue flag.
Because I was
the
so
blue flag.
slow. I was so slow. I was getting in everybody's way.
What were you riding?
CBR 600.
600. That's
Wait, and I can one up it. Because also another awesome thing that happened that day was Mark Paul Gosselaar from Saved by the Bell was there, and he was in the garage right next to me, and I crashed in the garage.
Awesome.
I crashed on the polished concrete and fell down.
That's more than a blue flag.
Yeah, in front of my childhood crush. So it's actually a miracle I didn't give up riding altogether.
Wow, that's a good one. Melissa definitely got a lot of attention that day.
The bad kind.
That was a good one.
Jeremy, want to go next?
What are you talking about? I could sit here and talk about memories forever,
something-
but yeah.
Give us the one, I don't know, maybe Isle of Man, Pikes Peak, Macau.
Yeah, I mean, racing, we could sit here and talk about racing forever, but I can tell you, here's one's funny since from the start. So I can remember being at Willow, which is where I cut my teeth racing, and taking my new rider school, and did pretty well, whatever, won my race that weekend. And I remember going and checking in the next month, and they would have two lines, and just full back of the bus. You'd have two lines. You'd have your novice line and then your expert line. And I remember walking into that line to get my tech slip that day and thinking to myself, man, one day I'm going to make it over to that expert line. And that was just so funny. Such a big deal to cross over. But yeah, there's
you
my
crossed over and kept on walking.
Yeah.
100%. I mean,
Good one.
What about you, Sean?
I have two really solid ones that kind of are marked. And one obviously has to be my Moto2 debut at the end of last year. And just for so many reasons. Again, like Jeremy said, I could talk about just that weekend by itself for forever. But, riding the Nicky's 69 that weekend was something just insane. Apart from being my World Championship debut, but that combo was something out of the world. So especially today, I just wanted to mention that too, because today is the 3 years of Nicky. So but if, again, like I said, I could talk about that weekend for forever, but one thing I want to add now that we got Jeremy here in this call is Pittsburgh weekend last year when I won that first race, and I got into going rolling up to the podium. The emotion that we both had was fucking awesome. We pretty much killed ourselves of hugging and punching and screaming at each other from how pumped we both were. And that one and Sunday, because it was a repeat, right? But it was race one, first win. It was just, the emotion was really badass, and one that we're definitely, hopefully both remember for a long time.
I saw some of that on the TV. They were broadcasting. I could feel it from hundreds of miles away.
Yeah, I caution you, Sean, from hanging out with Jeremy. You're starting to talk and sound just like him.
We haven't talked about. We're
gonna have to bleep everything after that.
The weekend we had out together in California, just me, him, and Zoomer.
Oh boy.
There's the dream team right there.
Yeah, big time.
Thanks, Sean. Great one as well. Mark,
thank you.
Tell us something. One moment that stuck in your head, completely. You can't. It's engraved.
Engraved is one of my best track places is Sonoma, that I went for my first Sonoma race weekend with Jeremy and Zoomer. And I remember when it was the expert race. It was on Sunday. We're getting ready to go, and somehow Jeremy didn't qualify that great. He was all in the expert race, and so the last race of the day was coming, and I happened to be in third row, and Jeremy was like in fourth row behind me. And I was freaking out, like, fuck, what do I do? What do I do? So I told Jeremy,
Get out of the way.
because I'm nervous. What do I do? He goes, just move over to the right a little bit. Just let me through.
He was nice to you when he said that.
Move over to the right, probably taking out almost 5 people. Just let Jeremy go through. And, that was one of my I'll always remember that moment, just freaking out, like, shit, you're behind me. How did you get the row behind me, and how did I get ahead of you?
That's awesome.
So did he go by you on the left, or did he just mess with you and go by you on the right?
No, he went by me on the right. He didn't go by me. He went by me on the right. And that's when he slapped Ricky Corey right in the face in turn 3, I think. He slapped him and got ahead of him. That's one of my moments.
Great, Mark. Well, so as everybody you've seen, there's a huge diversity when it comes to coaching. Everybody can be learning. It doesn't matter what level you're at. You have great opportunity right now. The data acquisition is a lot more accessible to most riders. Coaching is available, especially through Fast Track. We have, we are super stoked to have the level of coaching that we've been offering. And you can go to Fast Track right now and you can see the level of riders that we've seen that used to be mostly level 2, level 3 riders are riding at levels that when you ride there, it's amazing how fast they've all become and how great, and not just fast by using, the faster, more horsepower bikes, but more, just better riders in general. So,
whoa, that's
nice.
Good job.
I'm sorry.
I think my phone fell down.
Sorry.
Imad crashes on the last turn, last
I
lap.
crashed on my last lap.
I think we put out the
Should
wrong
have thrown
for that one.
the pit board at him.
Yeah. So I can't thank you enough, Melissa, Jeremy, Sean, Mark, Adamar, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us today and for giving your insights to this. And hopefully, we'll get to see everybody. I can't wait to see you all at the same. Mark, we haven't seen you in a long time at the track, so that has to change. That's unacceptable.
When's your next track day? Just let me know so I can come out and hang out with everyone.
Absolutely, no hanging out. We're gonna be
Come
on the
visit us.
We are all gonna go out. We're gonna line up and let's go.
All right.
I'll finish last.
Okay.
Great, anyway, thanks everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
All right.
guys. Have a great one.
All right.
Guys.
Good to talk to everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks, Adam, Mark.
Thank you.
Bye.